Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing It Came From the Network. The topic of this It Came From the Network, the life and times of Captain Lou Albano. Now, yesterday I put a poll on my community page. At the time I reviewed this, that was what was on top of the poll, so this is what we're going to do. This was basically one of the old Coliseum videos that they uploaded onto Peacock, and we're going to go through it. I'm going to rate everything here. If you haven't seen my shows before, I rate everything as a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. Let's jump right into this. We start off with announcing our host for the show, which is Gorilla Monsoon. Love seeing Gorilla, so that's an awesome thing to start the show with. This video comes to us from 1985, so not too long after Lou Albano turned face, after being a heel his entire career before that. We start off with a very short clip of a 6-man match. Captain Lou Albano, Hillbilly Jim, and Andre the Giant going up against the Heenan family, Big John Studd, King Kong Bundy, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. This was less than a minute or so. I'm not going to rate it because they come back around to the match later on in the show, so I'm just not going to rate it right now. I'm going to give it an incomplete for now. That's followed up with a match from looks like the early 70s, late 60s, with Lou Albano versus Tony Angelo. And it's kind of interesting because I thought that Albano and Angelo were tag team partners. That's what I had always remembered. So this was kind of cool to see that. The match itself was kind of It wasn't great. I mean, WWE, or at that time it was WWF, doesn't really hold up as well as some of the other promotions do, some of the other territories. Albano picked up the win here. I'm giving this one a 2. That's followed up with, and most of these matches are condensed or shortened or have clips of them. That match is followed up with a match versus a very young Rick Martel, with Albano going up against Martel. This was right about the same level. Albano wasn't the best in-ring performer. Martel, I think, was fantastic. Martel picks up the win when Albano walks out of the ring and just basically walks to the back and gets counted out. Again, I'm going to give this one a 2 again. Not really much to write home about here. After that, we go into a match where Albano's a manager, and at the time, and I remember this from when I was a kid, Albano was known as the manager of tag teams and tag team champions. I think he had something like 23 tag team champions by the time it was all said and done. We get one of his teams, Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito, going up against Jay and Jules Strongbow. As much as I didn't like the 2 Albano matches before this, I like this one even less. This match does not hold up well at all. Fuji and Saito win. I'm giving this one a 1. That's followed up our next match, and I know I'm going through these rather quickly. They crammed a lot onto this hour-and-a-half DVD. Basically, they shortened all the matches to less than 5 minutes. That's why I'm kind of running through them very quickly, because there's a lot to cover here. That's followed up with a 6-man match with Mr. Fuji, Mr. Saito, and Captain Lou Albano, going up against Rick the Model Martel, Tony Gurria, and Tony Atlas. This was a little bit better quality than the match before. I'm going to guess because of Gurria, Martel, and Atlas, or mostly Gurria and Martel, who were a fantastic team. They're one of the teams that are from that era of WWF that their work still holds up, especially Tony Gurria. Tony Gurria is fantastic. He's one of those guys that's kind of forgotten with time, but he was a great wrestler in his time. This match was a little bit better. Still not a great match. I'm giving this one a 2. Fuji, Saito, and Albano won here. After that, we're going into probably Albano's most famous team that he managed, Afa and Sika, the Samoans, the Wild Samoans, aka the original heads of the table. They're going up against the Soul Patrol, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, in what at the time was one of the most famous title switches in WWF history. The Soul Patrol picking up the win over the Samoans when Albano accidentally hits, I believe it's Sika, over the head with what they say is an oak chair, an old wooden chair that smashes into a million pieces. The Soul Patrol pick up the win here. A legendary tag team win. It's been covered on Young Rock. It's been covered pretty much everywhere. The first African American teams to win the tag titles, the first African Americans to win any titles in the WWE. Up until this point, this was my favorite match that they've shown. I'm giving this one a 3. Next up, this is where the show really starts to get good, because we move away from the matches and we go to some of the other stuff. We have a segment from the TNT show Tuesday Night Titans, not TNT, the network, where we have the Samoans, the Wild Samoans, and Lou Albano, and they're talking about their differences. The Samoans leave when it goes to commercial break. They come back, it's just Albano there with Vince McMahon and Lord Alfred Hayes. Albano starts running down the Wild Samoans. Obviously, this is when the Samoans turned face, and Albano went on, I believe he went on to manage, and as a matter of fact he does because it covers it a little bit later here. He goes on to manage Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch, who were the East-West connection at the time. This was a fantastic piece of work. This is where Albano really shines. I'm giving this segment a 4. That's followed up with another and I'm going to refer to Tuesday Night Titans as TNT from here out. Another TNT segment where Albano's talking to Vince about, and obviously Alfred, about the spoiler. My only gripe here is they didn't show any highlights of the spoiler, or not even a match on here with the spoiler in it. I don't know if that was on the original video cassette, because they did say that the video cassette played or this video is at its most complete format, so there may have been something that was lost to time here. Another great segment, another great promo with Albano. I'm giving that a 4 as well. That's followed up with an interview right before, I believe it was the War to Settle the Score, where the Fabulous Moolah is going to face Wendy Richter, and it's Moolah and her manager, Lou Albano, being interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund. Again, you put Albano in front of a microphone, he shines. Moolah was really good here. Gene's Gene, how can you not love Mean Gene Okerlund? That's another segment I'm going to give a solid 4 to. Next up, we go back to a match. We have Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch going up against the Wild Samoans, Alpha and Sika, with Lou Albano as the referee. Albano's obviously going for Adonis and Murdoch here. This was probably, out of the matches, this was my favorite match on this video. I loved how this was worked. Adonis and Murdoch are great wrestlers. The Samoans are a great tag team as well. It ends up a shaky disqualification where Albano disqualifies the Wild Samoans, allowing Adonis and Murdoch to pick up the win here. Like I said, this is probably my favorite match on the video. Not my favorite thing on the video, but my favorite match. I'm giving that a 4. That's followed up by one of my favorite segments on the video. A segment, again, looks like it's from the TNT show. It's Vince McMahon and Lou Albano with what he's called Advice for the Lovelorn, basically giving out love advice. And it seems that Vince is kind of saying things that are about Albano as what the writers have wrote in. A very good segment. It's kind of hard if you don't remember the TNT show, the Tuesday Night Titans show. It's kind of hard remembering how good of a straight man Vince McMahon was in these segments and how much he helped make these segments basically comedy gold. This was another fantastic segment. Like I said, probably one of my favorite things on the show. We're going to get to my favorite thing on the show here in a bit, but this is probably right up there. I'm giving this one a 5. Next up, we get another segment from the TNT show. This time he's talking about Cyndi Lauper running her down, basically saying he made her, he found her. This was right before he turned face as part of the Rock and Wrestling Connection. And sidebar, before we go too much further, if anybody that makes any decisions in WWE has any say at all sees this video, why the hell isn't Cyndi Lauper in the celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame? Please answer that. Because Cyndi Lauper did as much for wrestling as any celebrity has ever done for professional wrestling. She deserves to be in the Hall of Fame more than some of the wrestlers that you put in there. It is way past time to put Cyndi Lauper in. I know no one's ever going to watch this, but I'm getting on my soapbox while we're here. Cyndi Lauper deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and she needs to be in there right now. Back to that segment, it's Albano talking trash about Cyndi Lauper. I thought this was pretty good. It's not as good as some of the other TNT segments before, and not as good as some of the others coming after it. I'm giving this one a 3. That's followed up with Albano on the Piper's Pit, again still in heel character, talking bad about Lauper, how he made Cyndi Lauper. That's a pretty quick segment. It's followed up by another Piper's Pit. This time again he's talking about Cyndi Lauper, and she actually comes out and starts hitting her with her purse. This is my favorite segment on the show. This is some of the stuff that as a child watching this was my favorite things on wrestling. This is why I wanted to watch the specials that were on MTV. This is why I wanted to watch WrestleMania. All these little segments like this, Piper's Pit was gold. It was so good and such a great thing. There's a reason why they continue to try and copy it and do not have as much success. But this was great. This is one of the classic moments in Piper's Pit. I'm giving this segment a 5. After that, we go into another TNT segment with Albano there with Alfred Hayes and Vince McMahon again. This time he's talking about Cyndi Lauper, but he's a face. He's talking about how they're raising money for multiple sclerosis, which I'm probably mispronouncing. That's going to be kind of a running theme from here on. He's going to talk about how he raises money for multiple sclerosis, which kudos to him. That's a great cause. For this segment, I thought the energy was there. I thought it was better than the other segment that he just did as a heel on the same show about the same thing, so I'm going to give that one a 4. That's followed up with another segment with him on TNT, talking again. Another great segment. This is more he's talking about himself. I'm giving this segment a 4 too. I thought it was pretty good. Again, it's short. I can't really talk much about it. That's followed up by another TNT segment. This time it's Albano and Roddy Piper on there, and Piper and Albano are at odds because Albano's turned face. Piper is against Hogan and the Rock and Wrestling Connection, against Cyndi Lauper, against Wendy Richter. Eventually Mr. T would get brought into it. These are the building blocks for WrestleMania 1. This was good. It was so short, and it felt like just as it started getting good, they cut away from it. For that, I have to give it a 3. That's followed up with Albano doing an interview with Gorilla Monsoon, talking about how long they've been friends and how he's turned a new leaf and became a good guy, basically. Pretty good interview here. I'm giving this segment a 3 as well. Again, there's some better promos on here. This one's kind of middle of the road. That's followed up with a TNT segment where he's dressed up like a pumpkin, Albano that is, and he leads into some pumpkin carving. There's also a short skit where he's a chef at a diner, and Tito Santana's there, and he's asking why his sandwich has a bite taken out of it. And I can't even talk about it without laughing. And Albano says, I can't send food out to you without tasting it myself. I take a bite out of every sandwich to make sure it's good. It's just good stuff here. Just fantastic. That's another segment I'm going to give a 5 to. Again, as you can hear, I can't even think and talk about it without laughing. That's followed up with another segment again from the aforementioned, and we keep talking about it. It was a great show. You should definitely check them out if you haven't. There's some really good stuff on those old TNT shows. Lou Albano is cooking spaghetti for Cowboy Bob Orton and Roddy Piper. This is amazing. He gets the spaghetti ready. He starts dumping Louisiana hot sauce all over it. They go to eat it. They start coughing up and spitting it out at him. Just another great segment. I'm giving this one a 4. That leads us up to the last thing of the show, which is a callback to the first thing of the show, the 6-man match with Lou Albano, Hillbilly Jim, and Andre the Giant going up against the Heenan family, Big John Studd, King Kong Bundy, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. This is a pretty solid match. I understand why they ended it with this. This was probably really close to when this VHS was released originally, and it shows, obviously, Andre the Giant, one of the biggest stars they have, some of the biggest heels they've ever had there, your main face manager and your main heel manager. This is a good match. The faces, Albano, Hillbilly Jim, and Andre pick up the win here. I'm giving this one a 3. Overall, I found this to be a highly entertaining video. The match quality is hit and miss here. You're not having anything that's on the level of, say, what Morocco and Snooker were doing, or Slaughter and Patterson at the time. But there's some decent matches. The highlights of the matches would be Adonis and Murdoch versus the Wild Samoans versus Soul Patrol, this 6-man match to end it. The main reason I would recommend going back to watch this is for the TNT segment, for the interview segments where Lou gets to shine. Altogether, I'm going to give this show a 4. I think the sum of its parts are better than its parts by itself. I highly recommend checking this out. Even if you don't remember any of this, if you don't know who Lou Albano is, this is a good look at one of the historic talents in the WWE. Get past that first part of the show where the matches are kind of boring. Get into the interviews and promo segments, and it really picks up. Even with the boring matches, they're still cool to see. It's cool to see a young Rick Martel. It's cool to see Fuji and Saito. It's cool to see the Strongbows, the Samoans, Tony Angelo, even a name that I haven't thought about in probably 35, 40 years. Just a great show altogether. Again, I'm giving it a 4. If you made it all the way to the end, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you made it to the end, let me know you made it here. Let's put Cyndi Lauper in the Hall of Fame in the comments, and maybe tag at WWE so, I don't know, it's possible they see it. Or tag somebody that might see it. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another It Came From The Network.